Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Now we are on the third organ of government. In our previous videos, we had discussed the executive arm and equally discussed the legislative organ. Now, in this class, we are looking at the judicial organ of government, and the judicial organ of government, or judiciary, is that organ of government known for interpretation of the law and punishment of lawbreakers or offenders. All right? Then when you talk about the judicial organ, members include the magistrates, the judges, and the entire court system. So they all make up the judicial organ. All right? Yes. We have functions of judiciary here on the board. Number one is the interpretation of the law. It is the judiciary that is responsible for interpretation of the law of the land. If anyone is not clear about how the Constitution is interpreted, it is left for the judiciary to interpret and give adequate interpretation. All right? For example, if you are charged to court, it is the duty of the judiciary to let you know why you are giving a particular punishment. All right? By letting you know that certain part of the Constitution contains such a law. So having interpreted the Constitution to you, they now give you the adequate judgment. That is why before a judge gives you judgment, he has got to read the section of the Constitution that says such judgment should go in that direction. So no judge will just come and tell you you need to be hanged. He needs to tell you why you need to be hanged, and the aspect or part of the Constitution that says so. That's why they are known for interpretation of the law, so that when you are judged in that particular way, you wouldn't say that it's an unfair treatment. Then we talk about settlements of disputes. The court system or the judicial organ is known for settlement of disputes. If you have problem with anybody, it could be land problem, all right? It is not left for you. Physical fight is not allowed. You can take the person to court over that issue that concerns land or any other thing that falls in that category. When you take the person to court, it is now left for the court to decide the real owner of the land, okay, through proof of ownership. Then you talk about punishment of law breakers. By the time you break the law and the police arrest you, for example, and you are charged to court, it is now left for the court system to give you the adequate judgment as entrenched in the Constitution. If you are a criminal, there is a punishment for that. If you are a murderer, there is a punishment for that. If you are guilty of manslaughter, there is punishment for that. If you are guilty of rape, then these people fall into the category of breaking of laws and order. So there is a punishment to that effect. Then you talk about prevention of wrongful acts. All right? There are some particular writs, all right, that could actually prevent someone from carrying out a wrongful act. For example, any organization that wants to go on strike, for example, like Nigeria Labour Congress, and the government sees it as unlawful for them to go on strike, they can go to court and ask for an order of injunction restraining the Nigeria Labour Congress from embarking on the nationwide strike. All right, if the court feels that it's going to be a wrongful act on the part of the Nigeria Labour Congress. So that writ of injunction issued by the court is, of course, an order of what? Injunction that prevents the what? Everybody, the NLC from wrongful what? Acts. It's, they will now have safeguarding of rights of individuals. The rights of individuals refers to inalienable rights and privileges enjoyed by citizens of a particular country where they are residing. And these rights include the right to life, right to freedom of speech, right to freedom of association, right to own a property, and all of that. right to freedom of movement and all that. All right. So these rights are protected by the judiciary. They make sure nobody prevents or forestall you from residing in any state you wish to reside. Nobody prevents you from belonging to a particular association or religion. So it is left for the judiciary to safeguard your rights. Yes, because they are protectors of constitution. The judiciary serves as the watchdog of the law. Then you talk about protection of the constitution. All right. By the time you breach the law, it is left with the judicial organ to punish you in accordance with your, in accordance with the offense that you have actually committed, and in accordance with what is enshrined in the constitution. So they are actually protectors of the constitution. And I've always told you what constitution is all about. A constitution is a document that specifies the mode of operation of government. Or better still, you can say constitution is a document that specifies the modus operandi, that's mode of operation. Then finally, we have power of review. All right. The judicial organ is left with the function of reviewing the actions of the executive and even the actions of the legislature. All right. Any action of the other organs that run counter with the provision of the word constitution can be declared as ultra vires, null and void by the judicial organ. And that's that. In our next class, we shall look at independence of the judiciary. Hello everyone, welcome back. We are still looking at the judiciary. In our last class, we looked at the functions of judiciary, but this time we look at independence of the judiciary. That means the freedom of the judiciary. What makes judiciary to be independent? There are various factors that could guarantee judicial independence. All right, that's for the judiciary to be free from control of the other organs of government like the executive or the legislature. One of the ways to know that the judiciary is independent is through appointments. Appointments of the Chief Justice of Nigeria or the Federation should not be from the executive organ as we find in Nigeria. All right. Now, if you look at what happened in Nigeria, judiciary is not really independent. All right, because the head of the executive, the president, actually appoints the Chief Justice of the country. All right, yeah, recommended by the National Judicial Commission (NJC) and ratified by the National Assembly legislature. You discover that the Chief Justice of the Federation is actually not independent because the Chief Justice is controlled by the appointment of the executive and subject to ratification or approval by the legislature. So these two organs can actually control the judiciary, making judiciary to lack independence in the discharge of its duties. Now we talk about independence of judges. Judges too should be independent. In other words, they should not be appointed by the executive. They should strictly be appointed by the National Judicial Commission, so as to avoid controls from the executive or the other organ, which is legislative organ. All right, because if the head of the executive, like the president or the governor, appoints chief justice or the chief judge of a state, when any case comes up, there is every tendency that he or she would favor the person that appointed or gave the appointment. All right. Now we have promotion of judges. Promotion of judges should not be done by the other organs like the executive or the legislature. It should be done by a body that is independent, like the National Judicial Commission. It shouldn't be from the president. The president shouldn't be the person to actually promote a judge. Because if the president or the governor promotes a judge, there is every tendency that if a case comes up, the judge favors the person that gave out the appointments to him or her. Then we talk about security of tenure. The judge should have security of tenure, all right? And the tenure of office of the judge should strictly be controlled by the National Judicial Commission. Because if it is under the control of the executive, if the chief judge, for example, delivers judgment that is not in favor of the executive, he or she can be fired. All right, that is the more reason why the judge should be what? Secured in terms of the tenure and all of that. Now we talk about immunity. All judges should have immunity. To be immune means to be free from, all right? Because you have delivered judgment in a particular way, should not warrant anybody to sack you because you are immune, all right? Nobody can, harass you because you have judged a particular case in a particular direction. That is why all judges are immune. Whatever they say in the law courts, then you talk about they must belong to, they must not rather belong to any party. They must not, all right, belong to any party. No judge can belong to any party. A judge cannot be a member of the APC. A judge should not be a member of the PDP or any other political party, so that the judge will be free to discharge his or her duty, all right, without fear or what, favor. Because if I'm a judge and I'm supporting APC and PDP brings a case, you don't expect me to support, the other party. I must support the party that I love or I belong to. All right, that is why no judge should belong to any political party. So all of these are the factors that should guarantee independence of the judiciary or judicial independence. All right. Yes, in our next class, we shall look at some other crucial things about the judiciary. Hello everyone, welcome back. We are still under judiciary, and last time we looked at the factors that guarantee judicial independence. But in this class, we are looking at the problems that encounters judicial independence, or problems or factors militating against judicial independence or independence of the judiciary. If you say the judiciary must be independent, there are problems. There could be factors that hinder this judicial independence. One of those factors is decree. When you say decree, decree refers to the harsh laws made by the military. You don't expect a military dictatorship government to obey the laws of the courts. All right? If the court gives an order, military government or militocracy can disobey that law, and that could be a factor that actually militates against judicial independence. I mean, that could be a problem against judicial independence. All right? Military government, the moment they take over power, the first thing they do is to suspend the normal constitution for what they call decree or military harsh laws. Military government does not rule by constitution, they rule by decree. All right? Then we look at political appointments. By the time the judge has been loyal to the president and is promoted to the position of the Supreme Court, you don't expect such a judge not to favor the president in any way. All right? That could be referred to as a political appointment. And that political appointment on the part of the executive to the Chief Justice of the Federation could hinder the judicial independence. All right? Yes, it makes the Chief Justice not to discharge his or her functions without fear or what? Favor. All right? Yes, then you talk about contempt of the courts. Many a times in Nigeria, we have judiciary giving an order, usually disobeyed by the executive. All right? For example, the other day, a case was taken to court that Naira should be used. All right? But the executive organ, during the time of former President Muhammadu Buhari, gave a counter order saying that the Naira should not be used. Talking about the old one, the 1,000 Naira notes, the 200 Naira notes, and of course 500 Naira notes. You see, that's a counter order from the chief executive that militates against the judicial independence. Normally, if a judicial organ gives an order, it should be obeyed. All right? If you disobey the order, as I've said from the executive, it is a contempt of the court. That's disrespect to court order. All right? We've recorded several things like that in Nigeria and other African countries. Then we talk about insufficient personnel. All right? Now, people that work in the courts, like the clerk, like even the judges, are few. The lawyers that we have, they are few. Even the court system, entirely. We have few courts in Nigeria that could actually handle so many cases that we have on ground. That is why we have so many persons that are not tried. They are kept in police custody without trial because there are so many cases on ground, and the courts to try them are few compared to these cases. And the issue that concerns insufficient personnel, all right, actually is a big problem of the judiciary. Because according to the Constitution, under what they call the Habeas Corpus Act, and a habeas corpus act is an order directing a detainee to be brought before the law court for trial within 24 hours. Are you aware that if a police officer arrests you and you spend more than 24 hours in the police net, that it's a breach of your what? Rights. So you must be tried. But there are people who have been kept in police custody for more than 3 months. Nobody tries them. All right. Why? Because they will tell you there are so many cases or similar cases like that. All right, they continue to delay your case and all of that, and it's a breach of your rights, which is a right to speedy trial of what cases on your part. Then we talk about dictatorship government. Dictatorship government is a government wherein tyrants spearhead the affairs, all right, or is in charge. Now there are examples of dictatorship governments, government like totalitarianism, otherwise called authoritarianism. Government like Nazism, government like fascism by Benito Mussolini, Nazism like Adolf Hitler of Germany, and then military system of government. All these ones are dictatorial in their approach toward issues. You don't expect government like totalitarianism or militocracy or Nazism or fascism to obey whatever the court says. They will never obey. In fact, they normally suspend the constitution. All right, so it's a problem that militates against the judicial independence. And again, we have what they call inadequate facilities. The facilities we have in our law courts, for example, are not adequate to handle the cases we have on ground. And that's why they continue to delay our cases. And it's very wrong, because it is said that justice delayed is justice denied. So in that case, if there are enough facilities in the courts, all right, to make sure there are speedy trial of cases, it will go a long way to make sure our judicial system becomes a standard one. But if the facilities become inadequate, it is a factor that militates against judicial independence. So in our next class, we shall look at a more powerful topic.